of the American dream. This is going to be an educational stream talking about the American dream. What was the American dream? Because, people throw that term around quite loosely. It started off with the ideal that each generation would do better than the next. If you look at your great great grandparents, more than likely they were sharecroppers, they had a farm, and they started to migrate with no education, no training, get hired on in some factory, and literally change your life. And this went on for decades. This went on for a very long time. And you would go ahead like Malcolm Martin. He left Alabama, went up to Detroit, started working for GM. He was there until he retired. He gets a pension, bought a house, raised 5 kids, sent the kids to college, had all that money. And within that American dream, it became the American expectation that it was going to keep on. See, one of the things is that America is very, very unique. Many countries in the world, for you to get economic attainment, because we've shipped out capitalism, but before, China got capitalism, Japan got capitalism, you had to be born rich or born into wealth or born connected, or you would toil your whole life in the same station that you were born in. And this represented a big change in the world. I mean, America is the youngest country out of China, Japan, Russia, Europe, London. It's the youngest country. They have bars in London that are older than America. Bars that have been open for 600, 700 years. Bars. They kept in the family. They kept passing it down. So what has happened is you got people feeling that this gravy train, because a friend and I, we used to have this conversation, you can't have two Americas. The way that we were consuming and burning up resources, you could not have two countries doing what we were doing. So the American exception is very, very on point. Other countries, 87% of the world is poor. I mean, like, hey, do I have clean drinking water? Poor. I mean, our poor people, and I'm talking about the people living in the projects, the only people who are living like these third world people are homeless folks. Homeless folks are very close to living like these third world country people. So that great period that went on from the 30s to literally the 80s, like 50 some years of expansion and growth and prosperity and home ownership. And, these people who were illiterate, your grandfather may have been illiterate. He had to sign his name with an X because he couldn't read or write or spell. This man was able to go to the city, get a job, and bring up generations of family. This is one of the craziest things that ever happened in the history of the world. So you have many Americans who have become comfortable with the ideal that I'm going to do better than my parents. Currently, we have a situation where people are not doing better than their parents. Most people are not doing better than their parents. They're actually living with their parents. It's like my dad didn't go to college. My dad was able to buy a house, get it paid off, but I'm living in my room that I grew up in as a kid, and I have a college degree and all the student loan debt. So one of the things is people have to realize what happened. It was literally a ticking time bomb when we began to ship our manufacturing base offshore. When we got rid of manufacturing, we killed the economic engine that allowed someone to come from rural America, move to the city, and started to economically scale. We killed that economic engine. We got rid of it. And many people were asleep. They didn't realize what was happening. You know, the people who were losing their jobs, they made a lot of noise. They were like, hey, you shipping my job to China. You shipping my job to Vietnam. This was going on in the 70s because this started decades ago. This took decades to happen. And then we finally outsourced all our manufacturing to China. And this is something else. Currently, China has more rich people than America right now. Manufacturing base. These people are starting companies, corporations, they're building stuff, they're creating products and services. They have more rich people than America. This is the first time this has happened, and it's going to continue because China has that manufacturing base. The manufacturing base that we used to have that made Detroit the second largest economy behind America in the 50s. We just willingly gave away the American dream. Just gave it away for more profitability. Well, if we take it to China and we manufacture it over there because they have cheaper labor force, we can make more money when we sell it back over here. And that just killed middle class America. Just that was the drive-by shooting. Just killed it. Got rid of middle class America. And today, if you want to experience the American dream, and you know, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, I don't want to start a business. Okay. Remain poor. It's your choice. You got to start a business at best, at minimum, you need a side hustle. This is what you need. Yes, we're cooking with gas, Black Caesar. I mean, many people don't know the history of this country. I grew up, because I'm 53 years old, I grew up right in the thick of this when this was going on, and when they used to teach social, what was this? We used to learn about political history in high school during the Reagan, the Reagan election. That was one of our history projects in sociology. So I grew up watching this. I grew up doing the gas embargo. When you had odd and even days where you can get gas because there was a gas shortage. I grew up looking at men leave my neighborhood and go work in the steel mine, the steel mill, or the coal mine and gain economic prosperity very quickly. I have friends who graduated high school, and my Uncle Rick, Uncle Jed got me on at the USS Steel. Boom. 2 years later, he had a wife, a house, and a kid, and a Cadillac if he wanted it. And he can get all the overtime he wanted. Gone. Gone. So today, you need a side hustle. You need a business. That's the only thing that's going to level the playing field. What's up, people? King Maverick, basically, we handed over our power to China. Pretty much, willingly. Perceptions media rendered America unproductive and sterile. Pretty much. Engineer life skills. Large scale manufacturing left America, man. I'm talking about take Ford. Ford figured out that if he wanted to sell more cars, he had to pay his people more money so they can afford the product they were building. Revolutionary, I know, and that's what started the Detroit boom. Detroit, large scale manufacturing went offshore. You have niche manufacturing. I'm gonna give you an example of how manufacturing went offshore. Whenever I buy unique things from Etsy, they come from Europe. leather goods, certain things that just people aren't making that stuff here. Like for my kinky stuff, I get this. It always comes from Europe. Masks, whips, and stuff. It always comes from Europe because we're not making stuff here. One of the things that happened politically, we made it so hard for people to legally start a business. You got to have this, you got to have this insurance, you got to have this, you got to pay this tax. And it's a lot of money before you even begin making any money. That's why I'm saying, run your business illegal until you get enough money to participate in the system. You got to get that money. You got to get that cash flow. You have to take risks, Rod, for real estate, social studies and civics. Yep. Army Slayer, capitalism doesn't work without heavy regulation. I would disagree with you. I think capitalism works better with less regulation. And this is why so many people are happy that Trump's in office. Because if you look at all the stuff that this administration has deregulated, the business community is doing cartwheels and they're happy. Now, some of this deregulation is harmful, like the Dodd-Frank Act. They tinkered with that. So essentially, the financial sector can have a repeat of what we went through in 2007, 8, and 9, 10, and 11, and 12. Black Caesar? No. Once again, I'm sitting on my money because the Atlanta real estate market is crazy, and I'm going to wait till it softens it up. So I'm going to speaking as a first generation American, I believe immigrants believe in the American dream differently than settled Americans. Each sense, that's a great observation. They see it totally different because they're coming from a place of complete and utter lack. So they come here in America and they're like, you can breathe in the freedom. You mean to tell me that if I go down to the people and get a piece of paper, get an LLC, and I open up this store, and they can't do what they can do here in America in their country. Like the Chinese are buying up a ton of property in Canada. They have completely changed the Canadian market. And you know what they're doing? They're buying houses for their kids to stay in 10 to 15 years from now. They're buying property now. And then when their kid is of college age, they're going to ship their kid over here with an anchor parent. Usually one parent comes with them. And they're going to go to college so they can get the best education. So it's an investment in their kids' education. And they're paying cash for these houses. So you're going to see a lot of changes because immigrants look at America as a big candy store. I can get this, I can do this, I can build this, I can go to college, I can do this, I can do. They just like, let me jump into America. This is why you have all these Mexicans, El Salvadorians and people from Central America crossing over Texas and Arizona to get over here because there's so much opportunity here that the average Native American just doesn't see because they're too comfortable. Trav, outsourcing is killing this country. Produce justice. China ignored the U.S. and bootleg everything until they did it. Pretty much. Each sense. I think it's good for businesses to be hard to start because it means you have the wherewithal to run a successful business in the future. Really, Rod, for real estate? What's that? Bitcoin money. You got jokes. Remember the Indian gentleman? He could barely speak English, but he was able to start and run a successful business. This is what I'm talking about because they know, like, as long as they know how to count money, they good. Most people will ball out in 5K a month. You can make that in a few days for manufacturing with basic CNN machines. Yep, generational bars. Yeah, home prices went crazy in Canada. I mean, people are like wigging out. Justin Henry, my brother and I are the youngest in the family. We're the most financially secure. It's sad. King Maverick, it's sad how born and bred Americans take this country for granted. People who come from developing countries arrive here with a hunger to get it. Pretty much. Because they're coming from a system of lack. They're coming from a situation where, I mean, they're seeing some terrible stuff. One of the things that you got to look at is you got to look at because there are many people who are stuck on this. Jokey 64. What do you think we'll be working for in the future generation of Chinese? Well, Asians have the highest level of business ownership in the United States. So that could be accurate. If you don't start your own thing, you could be working for some Asian company, because one of the things is this phony trade war that Donald Trump started with China. China is built to do what they're doing for decades. They're built for this. They're like, okay, we can do it this way, and they still getting rich because, see, this is the thing. China isn't just selling to the United States. China is selling to the complete world. China has become the manufacturing base of the world. They're selling to Europe. They're selling to Germany. They're selling to Australia. Like all these, like Australia, this is where drop shipping became so prevalent in Australia because Australia is just a big island. And they had to learn how to import efficiently to make money. And this is where drop shipping really got started because they were like, I'm out here in this island in the middle of this ocean. 100-year plan. So once again, if you want to do better than your parents, you want to be in a position to send your kids to college, you got to start a business. This is what you got to look at. This is what you've got to get into. This is what you've got to start doing. This is what you've got to set yourself up for, because look at my trajectory. I came from, I'm doing better than my parents. It wasn't hard because my parents were in that generation. My mother was a domestic and my grandmother was a teacher, but it wasn't really hard because the bar wasn't that high. So it was very easy for me to outdo my parents. Very, very easy. Once I got on the plan, and you're going to have to get on the business plan, you're going to have to start a business and get a side hustle. You're going to have to be a good steward of your money because, van life. I posted a video on my Facebook page. This girl's living in her car. It's a Prius. Let me see. All right. No, it's on YouTube. Living in the car. My Prius camper conversion. Solo female van life. This video has like 63,000 views. You got a lot of people living in their cars. It all comes down to financial literacy. If you're financially literate, you know how the monetary system works, you know how to run a business, there's no reason for you to live in your car. You can live in San Francisco if you wanted to, which has highest one bedroom apartment in San Francisco is $3,700, almost 4,000. Just a little bit, little change, a little bit less than what I pay for this house. This is my struggle to move in California because, you know, you got $1 million neighborhoods that are just a smidge better than the hood. $1 million house is it's a hood house, unless you get a little bit out. So, you know, you got to change how you do things. You got to change how you approach things. You got to get in this game totally differently. You got to come to the game totally differently. You cannot just be out here wasting time. Because in the live stream I did the other night, I talked about once you get the right vehicle, it doesn't take you a lot of time to become rich. Once you get the right vehicle, whatever that may be. And that's going to be very, very important for you to get the right vehicle. China's already selling to Africa, man. China is already heavily in Africa. The Chinese and foreigners can live here for 100 days a year, as I understand it. It may, well, they're going to have their student come here on a student visa, and that's going to be a game changer. Because once they get that student visa, they can be here for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. Black Caesar, Bitcoin is not a financial strategy. Amen. Say it again, say it again, say it again. Justin Hedren, Asians all over Jamaica buying up and starting businesses. They don't play. They're in Jamaica. They're in South America. They're in Africa. If you go ahead and do Google Chinese in Africa, all right. How Africa is becoming China's China. China investment in Africa. Everything you need to know is China colonizing Africa. There's an estimated 1 million Chinese citizens residing in Africa. Additionally, it's been estimated 200,000 Africans are working in Chafra. Let me tell you about this. Chinese men getting African women pregnant. There was a big brouhaha about this because the Chinese men were getting these women pregnant and they were going back. Ganzhou is witnessing many African Chinese marriages, but the mainland's lack of citizen rights for husbands and a crackdown on foreign visas means family lives in fear of being torn apart. Why she gotta be a fat Chinese woman? Why she gotta be a fat girl? You're seeing a lot of these weddings. Chinese workers in Africa who marry locals fake puzzle reception at home. There he is. There he is. He got him a star. They're marrying these African women. They're getting them pregnant. And they're having these mixed babies. Uganda's worried about the number of Chinese men marrying their women. Contractors, petty traders, investors, and entrepreneurs from China have been pouring into Uganda for the past decade. China is a top investor in the East African country, accounting for much as half of the total foreign investment between 2014 and 2015, according to Uganda Investment Authority. But according to Ugandan immigration officials, there's one major downside. An increasing number of Chinese men are marrying Ugandan women to gain residency and continue their business interests in the country. So the Chinese are all over Africa. And they've been there. They ain't just coming there. They've been there. And once again, it's going to get worse. You know why? Chinese got the money. He who has the goals makes the rules. That's the golden rule. China's going ahead and doing all kinds of stuff for Africa. China is all over Africa. China's already selling Africa. China is firmly rooted in Africa already. Edwin Anderson, there's a lot of folks that everybody can't start a business bullshit. They say that as if knowledge is still a luxury. Amen, amen. Oh, you know about Steffi? Engineer Life Skills. Yeah, I saw the Virus Girl video. I was watching, like, Where's Your Father? Oh, check her channel out. She's got a video with her father up there. No, she is. The chick lived in a beach house in Thailand. She's an odd little hippie. She's a hippie. She's a true hippie. Pretty much, Edward Anderson, people are comfortable. That's why they can't grow. China's making loan to countries who won't be able to pay it back. Then they own the media ports, airports. That's power. Jokey Joke 64. That's one of the things they're doing because they're building infrastructure in Africa, and they're saying this like a loan or a gift, and that's a hostile takeover move because the Chinese are very patient. If it take 30, 40, 50 years to get this accomplished, cool. As long as we get it accomplished. California's the last place I would go. I mean, that's what I've been hearing. J for films. What do you mean by vehicle? An economic vehicle. You need an economic vehicle, something that gets you your money up. Houston would be popping if they can get that flood shit under control. Jam, I have 50K in the bank, been working warehouse since 2003. How can I double my money in 1 to 3 years? You leave your money in the bank and start a service business. Hey Jay, that's how they're taking over the world. Oh, definitely Africans, because this is one of the things about Africans and Jamaicans. They travel. You know, you got Africans in China, you got Africans in Japan, you got a huge African population in the UK, you got Africans in Germany. I mean, seriously, man, why does she have to be a fat white girl? Fat Chinese girl. If Africa got nukes, man, Africa's going to get raped all over again by China. It's coming. Each since Chinese civilization is over 2,500 years old, a few centuries to them is barely anything. They have a long-term plan. Randall, bro, Houston is popping. Tell people to stop moving here. South Houston sits 7 feet below seawall, and it would always flood. Ben Israel, they're playing to take over, move over. White folks did to us, make love, but give them so much, then start with the woman. They never see it coming because of lust. I mean, China is going to do the same thing that Europe did to Africa, and to a degree what America did to Africa with the slavery trade. They're just going to do it again. Because Africa is the only continent that has all the minerals and resources and natural resources that it needs. It doesn't have to import anything, and it just got people who are not properly managing it. Because I used to date a girl from Cameroon, and I asked her, I was like, because it was real interesting, because she would watch all these shows back home, and I would see all these shows with nothing but black folks, and I was like, why did the Europeans come in Africa and take over? And she said, language. They know what happened. She said in Africa, she said in Cameroon, we have 200 dialects. And if I don't speak your dialect, I ain't messing with you. So we have all of these African dialects and all these people over here who are not working together. Because if they would work together, the Europeans would have never been able to do what they did. But they ain't working together. They still ain't working together. And this is what's going on. King Maverick, Glenn, yeah, he got the money from the Chinese. The Chinese are like, oh, we'll give you some money. That money come with some strings. I mean, this is one of the big issues. And like with America, one of the greatest things you could do for your children is give them a financial education, more than how to count money and stuff in a checking account. Because when I start my financial channel, I'm going to talk about how money's made. Because most of these financial channels on YouTube talk about how to take money from your income to invest, but they don't talk about how to generate money. Because, this is the way the game's going. In America, if you are not starting a business, because 50% of this country makes less than $33,000 a year, they ain't no money. That's why you have the credit system that we have. Because without the credit system that we have, people would not be able to buy cars. They would not be able to buy homes the way that they do. It used to be, when I was growing up, people in my house, my neighborhood had 10 and 15-year mortgages. They put a lot of money down and they paid that house off very quickly. This is how people had to do things. Do it, Dragon Scorpio. Because once again, with the eradication of the manufacturing base, that was a big blow to middle class America. Because the pathway from being a rural farmer, being an uneducated man or woman, going to the big city, get a factory job, working on the factory floor, work your way up. I mean, there was VPs of companies who didn't know how to read or write. Their secretary had to do all their correspondence because they couldn't do it because they were company men. They went into the like this movie, The Company Men, with Tommy Lee Jones. And this one guy, he killed himself. He actually started on the factory floor. He never went to college. And when he got laid off, his world was over. I don't know if Akon sold out, but Chinese money, someone's going to give you $1 billion, there's some strings attached. Nobody's that generous like, hey, here's $1 billion. Do what you want to do with it. Pay me back when you can. There's some strings attached. There's definitely some strings, The thing we can look at and learn from Akon is he put together $1 billion deal by himself. which is remarkable. Ben Affleck, Chris Cooper, good movie. Yeah, because essentially where we are in history right now, like right now, many people have found out that going to college and getting a degree, that plan doesn't work. And many people have sobered up to that. Like a lot of parents are like, I would give. There was these one parents. They had two sons. They saved up like $150,000, and they were like thinking about giving that money to their kids to start a Subway franchise so they can have employment. Africa needs to form a temporary alliance with China or Russia as protection while they get their money up and get nukes. They cut all ties like China did back in the 70s. Dragon Scorpio, yeah, you can do YouTube without showing your face, but it works better when you do. African countries with nukes. Let's see. South Africa weapons of mass destruction. From the 1960s, because this is very important. From the 1960s to the 1980s, South Africa pursued research into weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. Six nuclear weapons were assembled before the anticipated changeover to a majority elected African National Congress led in the government in the 90s. The South African government dismantled all of its nuclear weapons, the first state in the world which voluntarily gave all its nuclear arms that it had developed itself. Wow. That's deep. I mean, as people of color, we just too damn nice. They gave up their nukes. They shouldn't have gave them up. Shouldn't have gave them up those nukes. That was a bad move right there. Wow, I didn't know that because I was just wondering. People confuse academics with education. We only have the overall foundation of education. Many people lack informal education discipline. That's why so many fail. Yeah, no African country have nukes, man. That's crazy. All right, Rod, for real estate. I mean, this is, look at Africa. And this is what's going to happen to the people in America who do not, A, go out and skill set themselves up so they can get a six-figure job or start a business. You got to have high income to take advantage of America. That is one of the things that you need. That is a big part of taking over America. That's a huge part of winning and becoming economically feasible because once again, like this is what happened to because a lot of upper class and rich, black folks who had upper class, middle income people, middle income parents, or rich parents grew up and went into poverty because they didn't do what the parents did. That's like mom and dad doing that. I ain't doing that, and they failed and they grew up and they became poor. Zola, they could not afford to have the nukes turned against them. those burned by the rule of the Boers, the natives of that country. Well, one of the things that you've got to do if you want to experience the American dream, and once again, like let's say you get married to little Susie. You get married to little Susie, y'all need to be on the one. We're gonna live on one income, and we're gonna bank the other income template. That will make you a very powerful as a couple because, and even if she's making $30,000 a year in 4 years, that's 100K in the bank. That gives you all kinds of options. That you can get into real estate, you can start a business, you can do all kinds of things to economically scale out of low income. Keyboard DFFs, if black people are powerful in America, we'd be powerful everywhere. It is, one of the big problem with Africa is there's too many languages and people are not working together. It's like, hey, we Kenyans, we Nigerians, throwing up African gang signs. We with this clique, we ride with this clique. We ain't doing that clique. So that's a problem. That's a big problem. But to be, I left up a statement on one of my videos, and one woman got irritable. She's like, when you program your woman, and when you're a dominant man, you're gonna program your woman. The next one that I get on a long-term basis, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna have a conversation. She's gonna be economically sound, and we're gonna bank her money in a joint account with both her names on it. I'm gonna pay all the bills, and that money that is gonna go toward investments. Because if both our names gonna be on some stuff and we're both gonna economically benefit, we're both gonna economically contribute, and that will be her contribution. Because I already got some stuff that's set up for the kids and for generational wealth. So this would be above and beyond that. J for Films. I think it's a deep correlation between being rich and having protection. What makes America so rich today is the fear they instill. Absolutely. This is why Bitcoin ain't gonna win. Because everybody's like, Bitcoin, we're gonna do this. We're gonna change the system, man. We're gonna stick it to the system. We're gonna create our own currency. We ain't gonna need no banks. America went to war for oil. You don't think America will go to war to stop Bitcoin? Facebook, Libra. And everybody signed up. PayPal, Square. All of a sudden, everybody's like, hey, we jumping out the car. They start bailing. Once once they call Zuckerberg up in front of Congress, they're like, "Hey, we out of here." Yes, I trust banks. Black Seeds. I think countries like poor. It's just poor in the Department of Research and Development. Therefore, it's easier for the outsiders to come in and dominate. Yeah, I mean, you got all these people. Like, when you see African on Facebook, what do you see? Every now and then you'll see some kid who created a motorcycle or some cars. But what you see? Dancing. Oh man, they're dancing in the dirt. That's the overwhelming image you have of Africa. If you knew African history of the Moors, of the Egyptians, because this is funny. Now I'm going to show you this because I had an Egyptian and I had to break out the map to tell him. Egypt is part of Africa. So, you see this? Egypt is part of the African continent. Egypt. And and this is where the pyramids is. This is where a lot of technology was. This is where a lot of science was. Egyptians are Africans. They don't want to claim that. They were like, oh, no, 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 we're not Africans. Moroccans are part of Africa. All of these countries you don't really hear a lot about. This is all Africa. You hear about South Africa, you hear about Nigeria, but Algeria, they're African. Libya, Gaddafi's country, African. Egypt, African. And look how close all these countries are to Africa. So you got all these countries in Africa, and you got all this history and these economics. All this stuff going on in Africa, man. And if you really knew the history of Egypt and these other countries, it is so impressive. It is so much more to Africa than dancing. But that's what you see. That's the image that is promoted by Africans. All right. So with that, I will see you guys later. Just some food for thought. If you want to participate in the American dream, you're going to have to do it different. Just going to college, getting a certain kind of job, that's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. Keyboard diffs. I get tired of hearing what black people did 100,000 years ago. What are we doing now? Robert F. Smith, billionaire. That's what's happening right now. I talk about the old and the new. I talk about A.G. Gaston. Once again, Robert F. Smith. Talking about, Byron Allen. Recent developments. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. What are you doing to emulate the folks who are making moves? So with that, I will see y'all later.